it's not about us. It's not about, I'm going to design the most amazing thing and look at me and check me out. You're doing this for people, because without the people hiring us, there's no reason for us to exist. My name is Cynthia Munoz, and I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, not just California, in the Bay Area. So I was born in San Francisco, grew up in Daly City, and just kind of worked my way slowly south. Lived in Palo Alto for a little bit. Now I live in Campbell, but it's literally, you're not going to get me out of this area.
I love it.
My family immigrated here from China, and I was the first one born here, and first one to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. So I'm very thankful, for everything they did to make this life happen for me.
That's interesting. So if we can talk about that for a second, what was that like in terms of kind of pressure or anything? Were your parents, did they have like a path that they wanted you on, or were they just like, hey, as long as you go to school, you can do whatever you want? Or
yeah, it was interesting. There was not a lot of outright pressure. My parents, of course, wanted me to work hard and do well. My dad was a dentist in China, and when he came here, couldn't continue that. So he became a dental technician, made dentures and things like that for dentists. And I think in the back of their minds, maybe they even thought I might enter that field and take over his practice. But when they saw that wasn't happening, they just kind of wanted me to find my own way. So I was pretty fortunate. I wasn't overly pressured to do anything specific.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So then what was it, would you say, that made you want to become an architect, or what attracted you to the world of design?
Yeah, what's interesting is I don't have one of those stories where I could say I always knew I wanted to be an architect and I built things even when I was little, and I drew things and I just knew, I don't have that story. I played with fake Legos. I built straight up and down towers. I wasn't overly, immersed in looking at buildings, but I always had a leaning towards creative things. Mm-hmm. I did like to draw, but I'm not an amazing artist. I liked to create things. So I think as I was trying to find my way as I was growing up, I just naturally gravitated to exploring things that used creativity. Mm-hmm. Architecture, interestingly, made it into my autobiography when I was in 7th grade. In English class, I wrote an essay and it said, when I grow up, I want to be an architect. I can tell you honestly, after that, never came back into my mind. I probably just had to write something. And for the younger generation watching this, they probably won't have any idea what the Brady Bunch is, but the dad on the Brady Bunch was an architect, and I loved that TV show. So maybe that's where it came from.
Gotcha. That's a good one. I like that.
But honestly, as I kind of explored different paths, I didn't even end up going to the right college to go into architecture. I graduated from high school, went to San Francisco State undeclared.
Okay.
And when I kind of figured out, maybe architecture is worth exploring because it seems like the right marriage of art and practicality, helping people, not just like art for art's sake. I realized, there's no path for me here. There's no architecture major. And then I had to figure it out and take some courses at City College of San Francisco and figure out where am I going to transfer. And ended up going to UC Berkeley. So literally, I am Bay Area.
Very good design school. Yep.
Yeah. So it was kind of a circuitous process for me. I explored advertising, graphic design, fashion. I even thought about fashion merchandising because, as a teenager, I loved clothes and thought, oh, maybe I can make a career out of this. And no, that didn't feel right. And so as I just started researching more, back then we didn't have the internet, but just kind of talking to people and finding out little by little what it was more about. Got encouraged by my parents, why don't you explore this? And just kind of decided, honestly, kind of decided this is what I'll follow. And it all worked out.
I love it. I've heard a story similar a couple of times. And I feel like there's something to going out into the world, into other different jobs and different fields and bringing that to architecture, right? I mean, I know the stories of somebody who was 4 years old and, got Lincoln Logs and was like, I am going to do this, right? This is my thing. But I think there's definitely some good experience to be had by going out and kind of trying some other stuff and then bringing that to the world of design. I think people definitely benefit from that. So, and it was funny, we were talking about Brady Bunch. I was watching, my wife has never seen Seinfeld. We're talking 30 years ago now, right? Almost, but we were watching a Seinfeld episode yesterday, rerun, and George is working with a foundation and he always fancies himself. He tells people he's an architect and he meets a young student who wants to be an architect and he's like, oh, this is great. And then the student decides he wants to be a city planner instead and George gets mad. But anyway, famous TV show architects or fake architects. But what would you say, and I bet there are a couple, but what would you say would be some of the favorite parts of your job or something that you just kind of really enjoy about it or that's really fulfilling for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the moments when I do get to sit down and let the creative juices flow and sketch or think about a design problem, sure, that's really rewarding, right? That's the crux of what we do is we solve problems using design. And when we get to do that, that's fun. But I would actually have to say what over the years has trumped that is the people I work with, whether it is the contractors, the engineers, and all the consultants on the project, or especially the clients. When you get a good client, there is nothing better than going to your job and knowing you're doing something for somebody you really like and that you want to make happy through whatever it is that you are trying to do for them. And I learn so much from the team of people I get to work with, different sizes of firms, different types of consultants. I learn so much from them and building that camaraderie where I really feel like part of a team and we're all pulling for each other. That's actually so much fun and such a rewarding thing that I look forward to every day. Who do I get to talk to today? And who do, that's what I really love about being an architect.
I like that. It's a great answer. If we flip on that, maybe not that it's the exact opposite, but what would you say would be one of the hardest parts of your journey so far? So getting where you are today, what were some times that you look back and say, that was challenging?
Yeah, I would say about, if I think about my career from starting when I graduated from school to now, I think about the midpoint of my career so far, like, the equivalent of being a teenager architect. I had a lot of soul searching, a lot of growing pains, like, why am I doing this? I was working for other architects, great people, learned so much from them, mentors. They're wonderful professionals, excellent designers, treated us like family, but it got to a point where I was kind of frustrated like, what am I doing this for? And maybe occasionally feeling a little constrained, right? Like not being able to fully express myself or handle a project the way I felt like was appropriate. I had to do something the way somebody wanted me to do things. And so probably midpoint of my career, there were moments where I like, maybe I should reconsider some graphic design or what else could I do? And also keep in mind that was when the economy was really bad.
Right. Jobs were scarce, and
2008, 2009, the jobs weren't coming in. Things were very lean, and it was just kind of, you just looked around and like, well, is this really the right path? So that was a really hard time. And some of my colleagues in my same company, close friends of mine now, had the same kind of pangs. And I think working through that and toughing it out through that difficult time for the industry was the hardest, but I'm glad I stuck it out and didn't make any drastic changes and just kind of stayed the course.
Yeah. It's a really important point because, like you said, I think whether there is a recession in the middle of your career or not, I think I've heard this from a number of different architects and engineers, for that matter, that you hit that point in your career, which is kind of like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And for some folks, maybe they're on the path to licensure, and they're, it's kind of like, do I want to go through all this work, right? So it's good to hear that it worked out really well in the end for you. If we could talk about leadership for a little bit, because you're in a leadership role in your firm, can you describe the process of kind of becoming a principal and becoming a leader and what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So when I first got out of school, well, let me back up a little bit. What I was fortunate enough to experience when I was in architecture school was I did get to work part-time in an architecture firm, small firm. And learned so much, was treated really well, got to see what the business was like. But then when I graduated, decided I wanted to try something different and went to a mid-sized firm, very different, bigger projects, more varied, not just single family residential, some commercial, etc. And realized quickly that wasn't a good fit for me. And by mid-size, I'm talking 20, 25 people. That's, by some standards, still small.
Right.
But to me, that was mid-size. And so I realized I belonged in a small firm and found the company that I work with, through one of my best friends in graduate school. Over the course of 20 years or so, the two principals were grooming my friend and I to basically take over. I don't think they had that in their minds from the get-go, but they saw something in us, that potential, and maybe they even saw the drive in us before we did and said, aha, okay, we're going to show them how to run this business. We would get exposed to the bookkeeping, the accounting, all the kind of behind the scenes stuff, not the not very glamorous stuff. And we would be thrown into running projects, sometimes feeling like we're not ready for this, but they believed that we had to do it to grow and to learn. And it came to be that when they were ready to retire, the two original principals, my friend and I were ready to, it was like, this is it. Are we going to sharpen up our resume and go work for somebody else? Or are we going to do this and make this our own? So we decided to make it our own. We had invested so much of our blood, sweat, and tears in so many of those projects. that it felt like our firm, and to walk away was painful. So that's our story.
I love it. I love it. Years and years invested. That's great.
Yeah.
If we switch gears a little bit to projects, kind of thinking like what would like one of the most challenging projects, or maybe a project that you've learned the most from, or something that maybe is just really near and dear to your heart, something that you got to work on. What comes to mind when we talk about something like that?
Yeah. I mean, every project is interesting. And it's like every project is a snowflake, and they're all unique. But I would say that about a decade or less, a number of years ago, I had the opportunity to be the lead on a project for a medical clinic. And while the firm in its history had done medical clinic work, I personally had not. My experience was largely single family residential, some commercial, but nothing, with the kind of complexity that a medical facility involved. And it was scary because there was a lot of very technical needs, very specific requirements, and a lot of different people on a committee. It wasn't just a family that was your client or a single person. It was this committee with a lot of voices and a lot of opinions and a lot of different, politics involved. And just learning how to maneuver that from a, managing client personality standpoint, and just understanding that learning something scary and new was actually good. I made it through. The project was a success, and was no longer a project type that was so scary anymore. It was demystified, right?
Gotcha.
Still appreciated the complexity, but it wasn't so scary. Right. And so now I have started taking on projects that are so outside of what I would have originally thought: industrial, just all kinds of weird things that, come across my way through strong relationships and contacts that I have. Yeah, I'll try that. I'll do that. I've never worked with that, thing you're talking about before, but I'll learn. And if you're game for me learning, that's great. And so I've really learned that it's okay to say, I don't know a lot about that, but I want to. And if you want to give me the chance, I will work hard. And people appreciate that, and I have learned so much. I would say, like, the type of project that I'd be willing to take on today is so vastly different and varied from what I thought, when I first entered this field.
Right. I think that's really important, especially to our younger audience, because we live in this world of social media, right? And social media is a very curated, you only see what I want you to see. Everything in my life is perfect, this type of, and I think with that comes this idea that you need to know how to do everything, or you need to be an expert in everything. And I think what you just said is incredibly important, right? Which is the way to learn sometimes is just to say, I don't know how to do it yet, but if you trust me, right? If you believe in me, I will do a great job for you. And I think that can get you places. I really, really do. I think that's really important. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I love it. If we went to leadership, do you have anybody in your mind that stands out? And maybe it's the owners of the firm that you took over. Just kind of somebody who is a leader in the world of design that you admire, or that has inspired you in some way.
Yeah, for sure. The two principals who we originally worked for and who groomed and mentored us, they're way up there at the top of like being amazing role models. And still to this day, one of them is still very actively engaged and checking in with us, and encouraging us and just being there. when we are having a tricky situation. If we need to bend his ear with a question, like, how would you handle this? Or he's always there. And it's interesting, when I was younger and just learning about the field, yes, I would look at all the star architects and go, oh, wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. And I really admire him or her. But as I have grown older, I really have stopped, quite honestly, following star architects. I don't even have time, honestly, to look at magazines. So I wouldn't even be able to tell you what the latest and greatest, iconic piece of architecture is. Although I very much appreciate it, I would say the people who I admire are the day-to-day colleagues and fellow leaders that I personally know, who I observe to be amazing principals or employers, the way they treat the people they work with. So if I would like to name names, a Palo Alto architect, Heather Young, comes to mind, and maybe you've met her before. She's amazing. I know how she treats her company, people in her company. And I know this personally because my husband, who's an architect, works for her.
Love it.
So I get to see and hear, about all the things that she does for her company and how she treats people. And that's very inspiring to me,
right?
And how she runs her company. And he has no idea I'm doing this, or I'll say this, but my husband, actually, Mark Munoz, he actually really does inspire me with his natural design talent.
Yeah.
When I first met him, I would see his work, his drawings, his sketches. I was like, wow, this guy's naturally very, very talented. And he'll maybe never even see this interview. So I'm not just saying that. He really, from a design standpoint and natural sensibility, I very much admire his work. Maybe have even stolen a detail or two.
Love it. I love it. Oh, that's great. I absolutely love that answer. It's perfect. We always try to finish with this one, which is, what would be the best advice you could give to an up-and-coming design professional?
You always want to keep an open mind. Always remember that what we do as architects, and what a young professional aspires to do, at the end of the day, we are in the service industry. And that means it's not about us. It's not about, I'm going to design the most amazing thing and look at me and check me out. It's about making sure who you're working for is happy. And when they're happy and they express their gratitude to you, whether it's just, I can't believe I live in this house now, or I can't believe you did that for me on time and on budget, or you were so great to work with. Let's do this again. That is the best feeling. And so to just remember that sometimes putting your ego aside can take you a very long way, and to listen to input from those around you usually results in a better design product than if you're just in your bubble and it's all me, all mine. This is my creation. Nobody else can touch this. I want all the credit. So to just remember that you're doing this for people, because without the people hiring us, there's no reason for us to exist.
Right. Great advice. I love it. That's a good spot for us to leave it. Cynthia, thank you so much. This conversation was excellent. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this.